Seahawks fans, wherever you may be. Thanks for listening to the show. Join your hosts, Bill Alvstad and Keith Myers, as we talk Seahawks football. Hey, hi, Seahawks fans. Welcome back to another episode of the Seahawks Playbook podcast. I'm your host, Bill Alvstad, sitting down with co-host Keith Myers here to talk Seahawks football. Got a little bit of a reaction show for you. A little recap of the Detroit Lions game on Monday night. Seattle falls 42-29 in a game where I think in the end, we just had too many starting caliber players missing from the lineup to be competitive on the defensive side of the ball against one of the world's best offenses and a perfect Jared Goff. And it was just too much for Seattle's offense to overcome. Although I will say this, Geno Smith played amazing, threw the ball as good as anybody, and they tried like heck, didn't ever give up really, which that was my big takeaway out of this game, is they didn't give up. Geno tried to get them into the game every time, every chance he could, every time the Detroit Lions had the ball. After Seattle answered, they answered as well. And Seattle really could never catch up after that DK Metcalf fumble and recovery and return to the 14-yard line. They consequently scored instead of it being 7-7 or potentially 7-7 at that point. It was 14-0 and playing catch up the whole game. So
and that's
anyway,
the difference
welcome
of the
in.
game. That was a 14-point swing. because instead of +7 for Seattle, it was +7 for Detroit, and they lost by 13. And that wasn't the only thing, but that was something that they were never able to overcome because the defense couldn't get a stop. But yeah, I mean, you look at all of this. Geno played arguably his best game as a Seahawk. And I'm not talking about just yards. Like, he didn't have much in the way of blocking for a lot of this game. He had to get on the third step of his drop, put his foot in the ground, and throw the ball. He didn't hang on to it. He had to get it out. He threw it accurately. And every time the Seahawks needed him to, he stepped up and answered. And they could not run the ball in the first half at all. I think they had 13 yards in the first half, and like 9 of them were a Geno Smith scramble. Ran the ball really well in the second half because the Lions started just backing off. They were, Geno had been cutting them apart. But he played as good as a quarterback can play. But they went into this game with 5 of their front 7 not available. And it's going to be hard to win games when you have that. And at some point, like, I know everyone's next man up and all of that, but at some point, the loss in overall talent does take a toll. And we saw exactly that.
And it shows up with the margin of error. So the margin of error, in a game of this magnitude, even with our starters, is going to be low because you're on the road, you're facing one of the best teams in the NFC, and you're still an up-and-coming team trying to establish your own identity. And with 5 guys out, your margin of error goes to 0, basically. You can't make any mistakes, and you've got to cause mistakes for Detroit. We weren't able to do either, really. We made some mistakes. They had a few helped calls or non-calls on the Seahawks, I thought, that kind of impacted this game in a couple different areas. And then we let Jared Goff be perfect, which is crazy.
18 of 18. He did not throw an incomplete pass. And honestly,
good for him.
He didn't really throw any contested passes.
He didn't throw anything past like 10 yards.
Yeah. I mean,
I read one stat, Keith, where he had like almost 300 yards, but he had 250 of those came after the catch.
Yeah. He had 273 yards, and it was like 251 came after the catch. And that's because he had guys open and he took it, and like I said, he didn't even throw a contested pass. He always had somebody open that he could dump the ball off to. And he did 18 times.
And consequently, they were very efficient. So that made them very efficient. They didn't have to convert a lot of third downs because they didn't even see third down.
Yeah, they only had six third down attempts.
They averaged over 9 yards on first down. And, you know, I loved the effort on the defense. And I don't want to bash them because it is what it is. When you miss that many players, starting caliber players, especially right up front in the trenches where this game needs to be won or lost, it's difficult to overcome that. And Seattle did really actually play fairly decent, all things considered. I liked the way they stuck in the game. I liked the way that they kept hitting. They kept battling. They just couldn't get it done. The talent deficit ended up being too much. The offense was just crazy. I mean, in this game, there was over 900 yards of total offense, both teams. So a fun game from that respect. You mentioned the word frustrating right before we push record, and that's really it, isn't it? It's just a frustrating game when you know that you probably give a couple different plays going a different way, a different turnout, a different result. You could have been right in this game or tied this game early on, and then it could have been tit for tat after that, and we would have been right in it at the very end. So it's frustrating knowing that was that close, and then knowing that, you know, you had 5 starter level really good players back into this roster on the defensive side. This is a completely different game, I think. I've read a couple of different things today that say that, you know, maybe adding those guys wouldn't have even mattered. I disagree completely. I think this would have been a completely different game, a different tone from the beginning. How does not
having 2 elite edge rushers not matter in a game when the quarterback was 18 for 18? You mean to tell me that putting him under pressure wouldn't have helped? Yeah, absolutely, it would have helped. How does not having your, you know, starting inside linebacker, you know, how does that not having that not hurt you when they have 2 guys that just, you know, put up tons of yards on the ground? I just can't agree with that. And then they're missing 2 of their top 3, you know, defensive linemen. Like, the idea that not having those guys wouldn't have mattered is just absurd. It's just absurd. Because you mean to tell me that the difference between Boye Mafe and Taj Gibson isn't enough to matter? Now do that 4 other times.
Right.
Oh, and then you lose Julian Love halfway through the game.
And that's just the defensive, you know, deficiencies that came about in this game. You know, the offense, we had 38 first downs. The most of any team in the NFL in the last 10 years, and the most of any losing team in NFL history. 516 total offensive yards, the 12th most in franchise history. That's going to win you games nearly 12 out of 12 times, 10 out of 10. And you do put it on the defense because that's what it is, and that's okay. I'll be completely honest. I'm not disappointed in the team, and I'm not disappointed in the way that we lost, because this is a real opportunity for Mike Macdonald to convey his message about showing up and tone and the depth of the roster and all that kind of stuff, whatever he wants to say, or excuses or non-excuses that he wants to use to motivate his team to get better, to be more focused and so forth, I think is a good thing ultimately in a long season. And so there's a lot to take away from this game, both good and bad. And, you know, I think that in the end, on the whole, it's going to end up being a good thing for this team to be humbled a little bit on the road against a good team where the offense did enough to get them the victory and the defense fell short. I think the defense needs that message once in a while, especially an early game where it was going to be questionable whether you're going to win it or not. I think a young coach like Mike Macdonald takes this as an opportunity to kind of reinforce whatever message he needs to get to that team.
Yeah. I mean, I just don't know if anybody is going to listen, because the idea that this is humbling when you're missing all your guys, that's hard to imagine that that's going to stand, and that they're not going to be like, just as soon as we get our guys back, we'll be fine. Like, is it really something that where they're going to be humbled by that? I don't know. I don't see that. I see them as a team that's going to be like,
even those
we need our dogs
guys
back.
Even those practice squad guys have a lot of pride. I mean, that's, I guess, what he's probably going to try to tap into.
Okay, so the practice squad guys got humbled, but hopefully they got humbled when they didn't make the team and landed on a practice squad. And if they didn't, there's not a lot of hope for them. I don't know.
There was a lot to learn in this game. I mean, how they responded to Mike McDonald's message at halftime. All these kind of things, these little things that you don't think about too much when you're watching a game, but really, when you're inside the locker room, when you're inside the team, and you go through all the team meetings, and you're going through all of the emotion and the highs and lows of training camp, and you're 3-0, and you have expectations, you really want this, even if there's 5 guys missing. You really want it as a team. And so I like the way that they responded to, Grubb and running the ball in the second half. And they continued to put pressure on the Lions, even though their defense was continuing not to step up to and rise to that occasion. So I thought that was encouraging. That's something you can carry forward and take with you into the rest of the season. And, I agree with you that, sure, there's only a certain part of that message that's going to resonate with the starter level guys. But I think these guys have shown that they've got each other's backs, and they care about the team. And so I think there's enough ego set aside to allow some of that message to come in anyway.
Yeah. So let's look at some of the positive that we saw in this game. I mean, obviously we've already mentioned Geno, but they got Ken Walker going in the second half against one of the best, if not the best, run defense in the NFL, and that was a pleasant surprise that he was able to end up with 80 yards after having, I think, 3 at halftime
on 12 carries, and 3 touchdowns.
And so, yeah, that was good. I loved what we saw there. And it's not like Charbonnet, had some good runs, but he also had 5 receptions out of the backfield and was a big part of the offense there. So the running backs did their part. We saw Jake Bobo significantly in this game, which was kind of fun.
Laviska Shenault only had 1 play on offense, and then Bobo had 15 reps, I think.
27.
27. Nice.
Shenault only had 1. I was really surprised that he.
I called that out actually in our preview show. I was like, this is a game that Bobo would have a lot of success, and so I was kind of happy that he was able to get in there. And maybe in practice this week,
Chenault's 1 play was a big play, though.
Yeah. And AJ Barner looked good in this game. And we need to start having a conversation about Pharaoh Brown and AJ Barner.
In this game, Pharaoh Brown was, out there a lot in the first half, played 28 snaps total in the game. But after a dumb penalty, an awful drop, and then another dumb penalty, he kind of got benched. And AJ Barner came out. Or AJ Barner ended up with 35 snaps in this game. And I wouldn't be surprised if that's not a permanent change where Barner's getting more, because I know it's only 2 games and it's hard to get 2 down on a guy when he's only a second game back after being injured and all of that. But man, these 2 games have not been impressive.
They look like polar opposite players. AJ Barner has a lot of upside. He's a little bit smaller than Pharaoh Brown, but he's got a lot more athleticism. He's showing some promise as a wide receiver, Mm-hmm. 2 receptions in this game, 27 yards and a touchdown. His first touchdown in the NFL. looks like a natural pass catcher if you watch him out there. It's not like, he's got hands for bricks and he's awkward. He looks natural out there. I like the way that he blocks. He's not afraid. I think he's got, for a tight end, he's already in the top 15 in Pro Football Focus's block win rate.
Yeah, which is what he got drafted for, because he's a blocking tight end, but he's got enough athleticism to be more than that. And he just needs time to develop into it. But he's a guy that there's a lot of upside there. There's a lot of untapped potential. And, they signed Pharaoh Brown before the draft. They didn't know that, what the draft was going to be. But honestly, the kid needs to play. I think he should be getting snaps, not Brown.
Okay. Name me another positive.
Okay.
Can be individual plays. I mean, that's basically, or individual players.
Yeah.
Sure.
I mean, I'm looking, and you kind of hit the two that I really wanted to hit: Jake Bobo, and AJ Barner. I mean, I think we should talk about Metcalf in this, because he was targeted early. He was targeted often. He was a guy that had 104 yards receiving despite playing against a really good corner, and just seemed to try to dominate this game. And I know he had that fumble, and that hurt them like really bad. And it ended up probably costing the team the game, if you think of it in terms of just points. But it was also in the first
only
quarter.
Because the defense sucked.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll take that play from DK Metcalf like 9 out of 10 times, because the guy
he's not going to fumble it very often. He's just fighting for yards.
He's just fighting, and you got to, that's going to happen.
He's so big and he's so strong that when he's fighting for yards like that, he's going to get them most of the time. And in this case, he just got hit, the ball popped out, and it was unfortunate that it bounced right to someone on the other team who could run down the sideline until someone caught him. It happens.
It happens.
But he was
I love DK's effort.
He was a big part of he was a big part of the game plan. Gino kept getting the ball to him. They kept pushing safeties and linebackers and everything to DK's side, trying to deny him the ball. And Gino kept getting him the ball.
That one play against the sideline with the toe tap down, it fully extended. That was a great catch.
And the 2-point conversion needed to be challenged, because he had his knee. You don't have to have 2 feet down if you have a knee down. And he had his knee down with possession.
Now, from what I understand, that should have been an automatic review by the NFL, and it did not happen. And that should not have to have a red flag thrown by McDonald. And that's why they didn't throw the flag. They thought that was going to be an automatic review if it needed to be reviewed.
Yeah, but
it should have been.
You saw the replay of it. That was a catch. That was a 2-point conversion. That was
which could have changed. Which would have changed.
I don't think it would have changed much of anything, because the moment that the Lions got the ball back, they took it down and scored. So
you just never know how things work. But I agree.
But it was still a moment, and Metcalf had a good game. JSN had quietly had a big game. I didn't realize he had 8 receptions in this game.
Yeah.
But he did. And I mean, that's when you throw the ball, 51 times, 56 times. And you have 38 completions in there. There's going to be a lot of catches to go around. But yeah, Metcalf just had a monster game. Lockett had a kind of a 5 catches for 61 yards.
Quiet.
It seemed like kind of quiet. JSN was kind of quiet, 8 for 51.
What did you think of that call at the end of the game when Njigba picked up the first down? We were marching. We would have gotten the game back within 8 or 7 potentially. And he gets called for running into the linebacker while in a route that for a brief moment had his hands kind of protecting his chest, so it looked like he was blocking him. Immediately got out of that situation.
You can't run into the guy. The goal when you're running those routes is you run by them, and the guy that's trailing you, you want that guy to run into him. You can't make contact. And yeah, you can fight your way through between two guys, and that kind of stuff. But he went right up, put his hands up right into the dude's chest. There's no attempt to run around him. That was pass interference. It sucks because of the timing, and because it's one of those calls that doesn't always get called. It's probably a 50-50 on whether they call that or not. But you read the rules. That was pass interference.
So that's a very, very, very costly penalty.
Yeah, you've got to at least make the effort to go around him.
And then later, Geno's marching down again on another drive, and DK Metcalf's in the end zone, gets run over before the ball gets to him.
Oh God, yeah.
And they didn't call
no call. And so what the hell? How was that? I mean, that was as obvious as pass interference gets from defense, and that one should have been called.
Some calls there that are impacting the game. So we've got the 2-point conversion non-call. We've got the Tyler Lockett call, which is a 50-50 call at best. I agree with you. I agree that it's technically, but nonetheless, really it comes at a very crucial point in the game where you're negating a first down on a crucial drive and penalizing them 15 yards and forcing them to punt.
Honestly, all of that is true, but Lockett's got to know better. You don't go right into his chest with your arms up.
He certainly didn't protest.
Take a half step off center and make it look like you're still hitting him. You're still preventing him from doing his job, but you're going through his shoulder to get open behind him, and you don't get that call.
I will say this, and we'll finish up on offense about Geno Smith. I know we've talked about him a little bit, but I just want to say that Geno is really having a good year. Yeah, he leads the league in passing yards, and second in completion percentage. He's having a really good year in this offense, and I really enjoy this offense, the scheming, the way it's the way that it kind of comes together. I had some notes in here, and I probably lost them a little bit. Sorry about that. But anyway, the way that Grubb is calling these things with pre-snap motion and with the line calls and everything just kind of coming together. Now, I wish that they would have kind of stuck to the run a little earlier in this game. They averaged over 7 yards a carry. I think that they could have made them pay a little bit more in that respect, but they did in the second half. Let's talk about the defense. Now, while all of that was happening and Jared Goff had a historic day, all that kind of crap, there were some good plays, some good players. I thought Derek Hall had another amazing game. I thought that one pass rush where he got the sack in one move, just bull rushed and took Goff down, I thought was amazing. Jaron Reed had quietly a decent game. There were a couple plays there where he got pushed out on run plays. But overall, I thought he played well, considering he played significant snaps in this game.
I think he had the most of all the D-line.
Yeah. Let me see if I've got snap counts. I know I do.
No, he had four. No, it wasn't. It was third. But there's three guys that, I don't know, if it depends on where you count Dre Jones. But Jonathan Hankins had 41. Dre Jones technically played outside linebacker for most of this, had 42, and Jaron Reed had 40.
So that's snaps. Over 70% for all those guys.
75% for Reed. And that's a lot. I mean, these guys are at their best when they play about 60%.
And Adams, go ahead.
I say you need to have that rotation. But when you've got your backups, the guys that you're rotating in are Miles Adams and Quentin Bohanna, whose name
Mike Morris only had 10 snaps too. So yeah, Bohanna looked okay on a couple of snaps I saw, and then he was the cause of some problems on a couple other snaps. And so,
he was. So Morris only played 10 snaps, but he started. Did he get hurt, or I'm not sure. Why did they pull him for Quentin Bohanna?
And why haven't we been seeing Kevon Wallace more?
Oh, and more nickel that way. Big nickel. Yeah. See, that's when something in
Kobe
this game.
Bryant struggled a little bit in this game.
That's nothing new.
It's true.
But Travis Gibson had 12 snaps. Tyus Bowser had 26.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how Jared Goff goes 18 for 18.
Right. Well, especially with Jared Goff. I mean, the guy's a dink and dunk guy. I mean, it just is what it is.
And you got to have when Quentin Bohanna, Travis Gibson, and Tyus Bowser are your three guys coming in off the bench on your rotation, you're not doing anything at the line of scrimmage. And that's where they lost this game. They lost the game on the line of scrimmage when the defense was on the field.
I thought Derek Hall and Draymond Jones played well. Now nobody really defended the run very well in the first half. In the second half, they started playing pretty well. It was more of the Jared Goff show, to be completely honest, in the second half. But Derek Hall played 81 snaps, 81%, excuse me. Draymond Jones played 79%. They both had pretty decent games. Draymond Jones had that safety there towards the end, I thought, was the Seahawks' last hope, really, to kind of try to figure out a way.
I got it to 13 and got them the ball back. If the Seahawks had been able to go down and score there and cut the lead to 6, then you're thinking, okay, it's possible. But they couldn't get in and game ended. So
I thought Tyrese Knight played decent. Terrell Dodson had a couple of moments, also a couple of moments where he got washed out of plays, trying to defend the run there as well.
Yeah,
Devon Witherspoon struggled.
Tyrell Dodson is a guy that needs more protection up front.
I agree.
And he didn't have much. He had guards or a center in his face all game. And that was unfortunate.
So that's about it. I mean, D. Williams had a couple of nice kick returns. He looks a little flashy. It looks like maybe he could eventually get one, take it to the house if he had an opportunity. Really, it's a game where you just kind of you learn what you can learn. You take the offensive production and you kind of flush this thing. And the next game up is going to be the New York Giants, and the New York Giants are 1-3, and Daniel Jones is there, and they don't look good. They're not a good team. They're playing better on the offensive line. John Michael Schmitz is the center there. We like him, but everyone else is. Andrew Thomas is still their left tackle, but he's getting a little older now, and so I expect them to bounce back in this next game. And,
yeah, I mean, they got beat by the Commanders this last week.
And the Commanders are legit offense, man. That offense, something.
Yeah, their rookie quarterback, Daniels, is making me look like an idiot by being very good. And I'm happy for him. I'm like that. Anytime you got a rookie that comes in and is doing the things he's doing, it's very RG3 like in that he's using his legs to open up things for the pass. He's not just a runner. He's just playing really well and playing some great football. But yeah,
one punt in the last 3 games.
That's true. The Giants, on the other hand, their last 3 games, they've scored 15, 15, and 18. So that's not a prolific offense.
Yeah, interesting. So I am a little concerned about the injuries. We had an injury update today from Coach McDonald. In addition to that, we're now have entered into a window of time, which is from now until the end of the season, where Abe Lucas could come back. He could start practicing with the team. Jerick Reed and Cameron Young are also available to come off the PUP list. We'll see if that happens. Reed seems to be ready to go.
And they get 2 weeks of practice before they have to activate him.
I'm curious about Jerick Reed because Kobe Bryant seems to be a practice player and not a gamer. And so I kind of want to see what Jarek Reed has and get his boost on special teams. He was very good at that when he was available last year.
Mm-hmm.
Cameron Young, the nose tackle, we just haven't seen. Draft pick from last year, really just kind of a mystery as far as what he's capable of doing. And we'll see if he's able to practice and they bring him along a little bit. The status of Nwasu, Mafe, Jones, and Leonard Williams seems to be in question.
Byron
even
Murphy.
This next week. Byron Murphy as well. Byron Murphy, sorry, I said Byron Jones. Jerome Baker seems to be close and will probably end up practicing this week and playing, according to McDonald. But he said every other player is on a week-to-week status update. So it did not sound good. He didn't have an update on Julian Love, although it's a contusion.
Yeah, it's a contusion, which basically means a really bad bruise. Right. And since it's in a big muscle, meant that he couldn't contract it. It was just too much pain to use it. That's why he was out. It means it's going to hurt like something that I shouldn't say on a family-friendly show. For today and probably tomorrow, and then start getting better. But by Sunday, it should be fine.
So I'm a little concerned about the Nwasu thing, only because they kept him off of the PUP list, or not the PUP list, but the IR reserve list, on purpose, thinking that he would be back by this last game at the latest, and he is questionable still as far as his return. Yeah,
the keeping Nwasu on the roster rather than letting him be one of the IR guys, as officially, that's been a failed gamble. They could have used that roster spot for someone who's going to play, because they could have taken him off IR and activated him at this point going forward anyway. So, yeah, I mean, in the end, it's not like they have someone sitting there at outside linebacker that needed a roster spot. I mean, we saw what they had at outside linebacker in this game, and it wasn't pretty.
I'm not looking forward to going into another game missing the same 4 or 5 guys that we missed this last game, even if it's the New York Giants scoring 15 points a game. We need those guys. And so it'll be interesting to see who comes off the injury list and plays. Hopefully Boy Mafe and Leonard Williams, I hope, can come back.
Byron Murphy's a possibility too. It's a hamstring. Leonard Williams, it's ribs. It's just he got hit and popped hard, and it's not broken is what I heard, but there was like some cartilage stuff, and so it took a bit for the inflammation to go away. And now he should be in the contention for playing. It's not like guaranteed to be out. All of those guys have a chance to get back in this game. And I would be nice to see at least a couple of them, because they need them desperately.
Yeah. So there was a couple of questions that I wrote down from his news conference. Basically said the difference in the game was the defensive performance. When asked, what did the film tell you? He said, it starts with me. If there are problems with how the guys are playing, that's on me. I need to be calling plays they can execute. We are making some uncharacteristic mistakes communication-wise and leverage-wise. We've got to make that right. How much did injuries factor in? I was excited to see guys like Miles Adams and Tyrus and Tevis Gibson. We have to play our game no matter who's out there. The second level routes need to be played better. That's something we're going to need to get fixed.
That's linebacker.
He talked about the offensive line. He said that was probably our best communication game for the offensive line. I will say that Christian Haynes came in and played 10 snaps, I believe. Maybe more, but he only allowed 1 pressure out of those.
Yeah, he came in and played, and honestly, I thought the offense was better when he was in there. Oh, that's right. The thing I have doesn't track offensive line for snaps. But yeah,
but he was out there taking snaps, and that seems like it will continue a little bit.
As he should. Tomlinson just got bull rushed into Geno's face a couple of times. And that was painful to watch. They did add someone. I think the coaching staff has seen enough of.
They did have
Forsyth over there at right tackle, and with their first string and second string both on IR, they signed someone who we had last year, the oldest player in the NFL.
Jason Peters.
Yep, Jason Peters. At 42, he's the oldest guy in the NFL. I would be willing to bet that once he clears fitness levels, he's playing right tackle until one of the top two guys gets healthy.
So the good news is Stone Forsythe did not allow Aiden Hutchinson to have a sack. The bad news is Aiden Hutchinson had 15 pressures, 14 hurries, and Stone Forsythe had a Pro Football Focus grade of 23.7, something like that. About
as bad as you can possibly get.
Yeah.
Right. Because 50 is considered average. That's an average. Everything's normalized for that. So,
he was one of the lowest graded tackles in the entire NFL in week.
He was one of the lowest graded players in the NFL, not
That's
just
true.
tackles. Go look at every position and find other guys in the 20s.
Yeah.
You're not going to find them. He was.
Now I will say this, Aiden Hutchinson. I mean, come on.
Aiden
15
Hutchinson's
pressures and
awesome.
14 hurries though, right?
Yeah. I mean,
that's crazy. That's a crazy game.
The guy is really, really good. He came into the game with 4.5 sacks.
So
in 3 weeks,
I want to, temper a little bit of the play that Stone did have, because he's played well, at least moderately well in the last couple of games, and we'll see how he does. I would imagine he's going to get thrown out there again unless George Fant miraculously is ready to go this week.
No, yeah, he'll get thrown out there again, and then you have you're going to. Yeah, you're basically it's a race. Will Peters get in shape, or will one of the other guys get healthy? And whatever of those things happen first will be how Forsyth gets off the field.
I think we saw last year that Peters, if he's in the same condition he was last year, it's going to take him 3 weeks. He was on the practice squad, I think, 3 weeks last year before he came in and played at all. He didn't really have too many snaps, which was okay by me.
He played a bunch later in the season. Well, that's not. He played a bunch. There was a chunk, but then they got Lucas back, and that finally got Peters back off the field, and that was necessary. So yeah.
Okay, so let's get out of here. Let's flush this game as I said earlier, and come back later in the week and talk about the Giants game on Sunday. We've got 2 games actually in the next 10. After the Giants, we play a Thursday night game with the visiting 49ers. And maybe that will be the game of the year up to that point, because I would imagine the 49ers win on their matchup this next week. Seahawks win, and those 2 teams come in, and we'll see where Seattle really stands at that point. And hopefully they've got some of their guys back so they can be at mostly full strength. So anything else, Keith?
No, let's get out of here, and we will see everyone back later this week.
Yeah. You can find the show on all your favorite podcast platforms and our YouTube channel, and hit that subscribe button, and send us a like and a comment, and we'll comment back at you. So until next time, go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
Seahawks Playbook podcast listeners, thanks for joining us for another edition of the show. You can find us on Twitter. Bill is at NWSeahawk, Keith is at Myers NFL, and the show is at Hawks Playbook. You can listen and subscribe to the show at SeahawksPlaybook.com.